The sea breeze blows gently across the coast, bringing the breath of seawater. I don't know where it is, the seawater is extremely clear. Since rebirth on this island, Caesar's favorite thing to do is to lie quietly on the beach, close his eyes and rest his mind. When traveling to this world, when Caesar's adult soul merged with the boy Caesar's soul, some wonderful reactions occurred. While the fused soul became stronger, it began to grow again, and observation hockey was awakened. It's just that observation hockey is regarded as a special kind of cheat by Caesar. In the past 6 months, Caesar has strengthened his cheat. Not only the scope of detection is getting bigger and bigger, but also the visibility is getting clearer. Within the enveloping range, it can be inspected from any angle, even through walls. So he seems to close his eyes, but he is actually exercising his cheat. Uncle of the Crow family, did you come out for a walk shirtless again today? Ronan, this kid, is peeking at the sister next door taking a bath again, but I have to say, the sister next door. The figure is so good that it's a foul, ahem. Green. Why did you run towards the beach? I'll go. This kid is not here to look for me, is he? Caesar couldn't help frowning, but didn't open his eyes. At the very beginning, what Caesar could see was only a few hundred meters away. As Caesar slowly focused on this ability, the range he could see also increased. Now, although Caesar is resting with his eyes closed on the beach by the sea, but he can easily see any movement within a 3-kilometer range. If he wanted, he could even see the movements found in the cave. For example, the daughter-in-law of the Biden family went to drill caves with Ty Trump again. For this ability, Caesar is not disgusted. After all, it is the vast majority of men who have seen so many wonderful things without being present. No, it is the ability that most people desire. So many time travelers have cheats, Caesar thinks. This should be the welfare of the time-traveling party given to him by God. Bar. It has been nearly half a year since time travel, and Caesar closes his eyes on the beach every day. Repose. At least, the villagers in the village think so. They really couldn't understand how the living habits of this little guy who was only 8 or 9 years old were different from those of some old men. So similar. Caesar did not explain the villagers' misunderstanding. When Spider-Man's identity is exposed, his family will also be targeted by dangerous people. With great power comes great responsibility. Caesar doesn't want to take responsibility, so he doesn't want to explain either. For this kind of life, Caesar likes it very much. Lie on the beach and practice, improve your ability, and become stronger silently. Pretend to be a pig and eat a tiger. This is the highest state of pretending to be 13. Caesar, come on, something is wrong. The children in this world are much stronger physically than the children in the original world. From the other side of the village to the beach, it takes nearly 10 kilometers. But Green, who was only a teenager, was able to complete the project without changing his face. When Green ran only a dozen meters away from him, Caesar opened his eyes and slowly walked from the ground. Get up. Glancing at Green helplessly, Caesar asked back. What's the matter? Whose pig has dystocia? Or whose rooster laid eggs? Or, the wife of the Biden family gave birth to Ty Trump's child? Green was stunned. How do you know that the children of the Biden family are actually Ty Trump's? What I saw. Of course Caesar couldn't say that. He didn't want to dwell on this topic any longer. Angrily, he pointed at Green's head, and Caesar scolded with a smile. Didn't you come to talk to me about something? Why are you here to ask me now? Tell me. What happened in the village? Zhe Lin Yi slapped his head. By the way, I almost forgot about the big thing. We picked up a piece of paper at the other end of the village. It's a new thing, it looks delicious. I think you have told me so many fairy tales, I think you know more than us, so I think. Let you go over and see if you recognize that thing. Caesar shook his head helplessly, motioning for Green to lead the way. The moment Green turned his head, Caesar had already closed his eyes and began to check the situation over there. What the children picked up seemed to be a fruit. The fruit appears to be a mango, but it looks a little different from normal mangoes. How should I put it? This mango is covered with weird patterns. Suddenly, one of the children couldn't help but picked it up and opened his mouth to take a bite. After swallowing, the child immediately showed a hideous look, as if he had eaten poop. Suddenly, the child's body changed. His limbs turned into claws, and his smooth little face suddenly became hairy. After a while, he turned into a saber-toothed tiger. Seeing this scene, Caesar couldn't help being stunned. Is it devil fruit? Here, it turned out to be the world of One Piece. The mysterious pattern, eating it can instantly give people non-human abilities. That thing is definitely devil fruit. That you can see. The ability to view distant places is not a system ability anymore. If the guess is correct, it should be observation haki, one of the three haki. Although many people have many opinions on Conqueror's haki. But Caesar feels that, overall, Conqueror's haki can be boiled down to 3 words. Perceive, strengthen, refine kamui. The color of knowledge and knowledge is the best perception ability, and the color of armament can strengthen the human body. And Conqueror's is the most magical, it can deter opponents weaker than itself, and it can also entangle and enhance its own attack power. It is also because it is so magical that it becomes a rare haki that can only appear 1 in a million. After figuring out that this is the world of One Piece, while Caesar accepted, there was a trace of vigilance in his heart. The world of One Piece is a world where the strongest are absolutely respected. Here, the law of the jungle is the only criterion. As Crocodile said, in this world, being weak is a sin. Soon, the two rushed to the other side of the town. At this time, the boy had turned into a saber-toothed tiger. He was yelling at one of the children. Caesar recognized it at a glance. The child who was trembling with fright was the leader of the group of children. Boss Neil. On weekdays, Neil relied on his age to be older than the other children, and his height and weight overwhelmed the other children. Always bullying other kids. And this little boy Brad, who has become a saber-toothed tiger, is the object of Neil's daily care. After realizing that he has gained great strength, after a short period of tension and fear, Brad immediately sought revenge from Neil. The anger accumulated for a long time will be vented at this time. Seeing that Brad, who is usually timid about doing everything, suddenly became so nervous after gaining the ability. Ferocious. Caesar has a deeper understanding of this world of the jungle. I don't want to be mediocre in the sea of people like I did in my previous life, being obedient. I want to become stronger, I want to become an absolute strong man. Absolutely can't be like Neil, only have false strength. I want the world to be big, let me gallop. What I think, I can do. No one can stop me. This is the real power. When Caesar was lost in thought, Neil was terrified, his pants were wet a lot. Brad took 2 steps back in disgust, then turned to look at the rest of the kids. The rest of the children were so frightened that they collapsed on the ground, motionless. They didn't know about devil fruit, they just thought that Brad was suddenly possessed by a demon and became the devil. They were afraid of Brad like this, afraid that Brad would eat them. Looking at the doglegs who followed Neil on weekdays, he saw his legs trembling in fear. Brad nodded in satisfaction, and after looking around for a while, Brad's eyes suddenly turned fierce. He noticed a man was still standing. After seeing him so powerful, how dare he stand still? Unforgivable, unforgivable, you loner. Let you experience my power today. Roar. Brad roared and rushed towards Caesar. At this time, Caesar was still immersed in his previous thinking. At this moment, he felt that although the world was big, it was not scary. As long as he is willing, as long as he works hard, he can become a strong man standing at the top of the world. He wants to be the center of all things, to be the existence that all things admire. He wants the sky and the earth to be big, and I am the only one. Caesar's half-closed eyes snapped open. Suddenly, a powerful momentum invisible to the naked eye, centered on Caesar, spread towards the surroundings. The ability of beasts to perceive danger far exceeds that of ordinary humans. This is the 6th sense of beasts. So, at this moment, alarm bells in Brad's heart rang loudly. Unfortunately, it's too late. A gust of wind suddenly blew from Caesar's side, sweeping the entire town in an instant. Brad, who was closest to Caesar, was dripping with cold sweat. Before he had time to dodge, he felt his head or soul being hit hard. Immediately, his eyes rolled white, and he passed out on the ground. Plop. Brad, who lost his power, fell directly from the sky to the ground. But it wasn't just Brad who passed out. The children around, the villagers in the town. Even the fish near the sea lost consciousness at this moment. For a while, the sea was full of fish with their bellies turned upside down. They were of different sizes, but all were unconscious, floating on the water with their eyes rolled. In the town, only a few people persevered a little bit, or just suffocated without fainting. The momentum on Caesar's body gradually dissipated, and a sharp pain pierced through Caesar's head. Oh. It hurts, my head hurts. Under the severe pain, Caesar clutched his head and fell to the ground in pain. The self-protection of body functions played a role at this moment. Caesar followed the children, also passed out. At the same time as he fell, the mud and gravel floating around him suddenly fell to the ground. All the parties on this beach lost consciousness at this moment. And this incident has also become a well-known supernatural event in the town. In the forest very close to the shore of the island, the breeze blows gently, and the tip of the nose can smell the fishy smell unique to the faint seawater. Recalling what happened yesterday, Caesar's heart was agitated. Clenching his hands into fists, he swore secretly in his heart. He is going to practice hard. This is the world of One Piece. It also means that he can constantly break the physical limit. The brain kicks into high gear. The methods of exercising that I have seen in my previous life flooded into my mind. Physical fitness is always the foundation of all great strength. The first is eating and drinking. Add protein, preferably a variety of meat and eggs. This is simple, and there are a lot of things like beasts in the forest. The second is to exercise the muscles in all parts of the body. Chest muscles, bench press with a powerful barbell. Leg muscles, heavy leg bending and stretching. The strength of the biceps brachii of the arm, lifting heavy objects. Back muscles, latissimus dorsi kneading and pulling down. There is also the strength of the shoulders, using the shoulders to lift the dumbbells vertically. Also add daily running and aerobic exercise to exercise the stretching ability of the lungs. Execute the plan in stages, doubling your strength with each completed plan. In the long run, the strength of the flesh will increase to the greatest extent. You don't need to take a pen to write it down. It seems that an area is automatically separated in your mind, which is for placing things that need to be flipped frequently. He was taken aback suddenly. Did he just pull out all the information he read in his previous life? The first week plan just made was immediately remembered. If it was him in the previous life, he would definitely take a small notebook and write it down, and then look at the day's plan every day. Thinking of this, a feeling of excitement suddenly surged in my heart. There was a bright smile on his face. His memory is pretty good. After writing down the plan, the first day of practice began. It didn't take long for him to buy the dumbbells he needed for the initial stage from some stores in the town. The sound of ho-ho-ho gasps was quickly heard in the forest. On the small bench he made simply, huge iron dumbbells were constantly pushed upwards. The sweat on the forehead kept falling until the soil on the ground was completely soaked. After all the strength training is completed, it is to run circles along the shore. The effect of running on the beach is strongest. Because the sand on the beach will sink, there is no way to bounce people's legs and feet, and the muscles of the calves and thighs must use greater strength to run forward. After a few days like this, one evening, a man suddenly walked on the beach. Caesar? It's Brad. What are you doing? Brad was pushed out by the other kids after he became a saber-toothed tiger that time. The kids called him a monster. He who has no friends to play with. Came here when I was bored. I'm practicing. Caesar stopped, panting slightly. After practicing for 3 days, I am not as breathless as when I first started. He looked at Brad. I remember you ate devil fruit. Devil fruit? What's that? Brad asked strangely. It's the unpalatable fruit you ate that day. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, that fruit has extraordinary power. In this case, do you want to train with me? When discovered by Brad, it only took him a few seconds to decide to persuade Brad to practice together. Having one more partner makes it easier to persevere. Besides, you also need a sparring partner, don't you? Moreover, Brad also ate devil fruit, so he could clearly compare his cultivation progress with that of demon fruit power. Seeing the calm and composed light in Caesar's eyes, Brad's heart moved slightly. Caesar was the only one who didn't turn away from him after that incident. And he seems to know the source of that fruit. In this case, let's train together. Okay. He nodded sharply, with a big smile on his face. It's been about a week. He and Brad were pressing each other's ankles and doing sit-ups. The muscle lines on the stomach are becoming more and more obvious. Caesar was taken aback for a moment, and when he was thinking about the muscle lines, the changes in the muscles in various parts of his body appeared clearly in his mind in the past week. He has already determined that his memory is indeed outstanding. All the materials that I read intentionally or unintentionally in the previous life are all collected in my mind. The brain is like a knowledge repository, storing all the things you have seen in it, and when necessary, directly input keywords to extract. This is so convenient for him to practice and study. After doing 3 sets of sit-ups, the 2 rest back to back. The body is resting, but the brain is still functioning. Having discovered that he has such a powerful memory, he certainly can't let go of making good use of this memory to read all the videos he has watched in his previous life. Even if it was in his spare time, he never let go of short videos about physical skills or boxing. He decided to create a set of physical exercises that can play a big role in this era based on the information in his memory. Whether it is the martial arts system of the Shaolin school, or the slow Taijiquan, or the Wing Chun of Ip Man, each part is extracted. Form a set of body skills that are easy to learn and can maximize your own strength. Too slow. Snapped. Still too slow. Caesar raised his arms. Let Brad keep kicking towards the muscles of the arm. This is an action extracted from Taekwondo. Kick up, turn around and kick. What? Snapped. Brad gritted his teeth and kicked hard and seriously. Finally, Caesar's arm was kicked a small amount by him. Brad breathed a sigh of relief. A few days ago, Caesar taught him gymnastics. Although the movements are all strange, but after practice, they are extraordinarily powerful. But it's too difficult, although there is an increase in Devil Fruit's power. But in terms of physical skills, he is really rubbish. Exchange. Caesar patted Brad on the shoulder, and Brad immediately transformed into a saber-toothed tiger tacitly. Caesar spun and kicked the saber-toothed tiger in the head. Nothing moved. No change at all. Caesar gritted his teeth and continued to kick. Snapped. The insteps were already red, it was the saber-toothed tiger still standing still. A hard kick he gave with all his strength was like scratching an itch for the saber-toothed tiger. He couldn't believe it, thinking about the strength of the muscles everywhere. Running from afar. Hey, with the momentum of thousands of troops. The left leg rubbed a big chinban palm footprint on the mud floor. What? The right foot kicked hard on the saber-toothed tiger's shell. Immediately, the sharp pain in the back of the foot doubled. He clenched his teeth, enduring the pain, a little frustrated. Thought it was another kick in vain. It can be next second. The entire saber-toothed tiger moved a little distance to the left. Although only a little bit, but it's already a huge improvement. Great. Brad quickly released the form of the saber-toothed tiger. Looking at Caesar with bright eyes, it's only the third day, and you kicked the saber-toothed tiger. Caesar held his tingling leg and breathed a sigh of relief. Then he also smiled, it's finally a bit of progress. Brad puffed up his cheeks and stared at him for a second. It's too annoying for Caesar to say such a thing. It took me 3 days in a row to kick your arm. Caesar waved his hand. That's because my physical fitness is a little stronger than yours. After a short rest, the two ran into the depths of the forest. Let's see who gets there first. As soon as Brad finished speaking, he ran inside. Caesar was stunned for a second, and then chased after him. Deep in the forest, there is a crocodile pond. All of them are crocodiles. Sometimes when they get hungry, they will find a way to work together to get a crocodile up. But the risk is indeed great, because with their current strength, it is not enough to fight against a crocodile. Unless it's Brad's saber-toothed tiger form. After reaching the crocodile pond, Brad was about to go forward excitedly. Brad. Caesar yelled immediately. The voice was full of vigilance. Cold sweat broke out all over his body. Take observation hockey. It was easy to see the beast's ambush nearby. More than one. Roar. A gray wild wolf slowly walked out of the dense forest. Brad froze immediately, trembling all over. Wolf. Wolf. How to do? It seemed that it was afraid that the sound would startle the wild wolf. Caesar frowned instantly. Wolves are pack animals. There must be only one head. Besides, wherever he looked, I also saw the pack of wolves slowly gathering behind the wolf. He took a deep breath and told himself not to be afraid. Consoling Brad, are you still a saber-toothed tiger? What are you afraid of? Brad's pupils trembled violently, and he couldn't speak steadily. That's different. He was human and a child. Nothing compares to these beasts. It was frightening to see him. Caesar took the initiative to step forward, blocking Brad's figure. How can he die here? Does he still want to dominate the sea? In this world of One Piece, it is too shameful to die by a mere beast. He was lost in thought. The look in his eyes became more and more determined. Roar. Perhaps because Caesar didn't show enough fear, the wolf roared and lunged forward. Caesar looked up immediately. Open your eyes. In an instant, a wave invisible to the naked eye swept away immediately. Like the airflow raised by the blade, it cuts everything. But he was eerily quiet. Silently. The wild wolf rolled his eyes, fainted with a bang, and fell to the ground. Bang bang bang. One after another. The pack of wolves 200 meters away also fell down. All the crocodiles in the pond showed fear in their eyes, then rolled their eyes and rolled up their bellies. There were 2 pops. Caesar and Brad followed suit, fainting. When I woke up the next day, Caesar was silent for a long while. He was absolutely sure. This is the awakening of Conqueror's Hockey. Awakened observation hockey before, plus Conqueror's Hockey. Conqueror's Hockey has awakened the second, especially Conqueror's Hockey. It was a hockey power over millions of people, and it cannot be obtained through acquired practice. It can only be possessed by nature. Caesar slowly raised a corner of his mouth. Well, next, even Conqueror's Hockey's control is gone. He can't be the same as yesterday. Even himself and Brad were stunned by his Conqueror's Hockey. A few years slipped away like this. The coconut trees on the shore of the island still nod gently towards the sea. But in the forest, the sound of the teenagers' hee-hee-ha-ha training never stopped. This year, Caesar was 12 years old. He has grown from a thin child to a teenager, and a strong teenager at that. Deeper into the forest. Bang! The birds in the forest suddenly chirped and flew away. A huge tree fell in response. Caesar quickly retracted the tree-breaking leg. Take a step back and dodge the falling trees. When he didn't notice, the fallen tree slowly moved a few centimeters forward. Brad nimbly dodged the fallen tree, pulling the vines, kicking hard. Swing into another tree. Caesar, come on. He raised his eyebrows defiantly, excited. Caesar cut. Glance. Probably estimated the straight line distance between the two. Next second, he opened his eyes sharply. An invisible air current quickly hit Brad. Brad subconsciously felt the danger. His legs trembled and he wanted to step back. Run away. My mind screamed to run away. The body froze in place. Don't move. The pupils vibrated violently, and the sweat dripped from the forehead like rainwater. Brad knew he was doing it again. Boom. Stabbed. The huge branches under the feet slowly crack. His body followed closely. Brad fell straight down with a scream. It fell to the ground with a snap. Then he quickly rolled over, dodging the falling tree branch of Uncle. Great. He crouched on the ground and looked up at the cleft in the thick branch. He couldn't help admiring, with envy and admiration in his eyes. Caesar's lips curled up slightly. Admit defeat now. His hockey, after several years of deliberate control training, can already be released at will. Within a certain distance, it can also be single shot towards the designated target. As a last resort, he used hockey to fight Brad. With Brad's current sensitivity, he couldn't avoid it. I'm going to throw in the towel when you make that move. You are too powerful, your legs and body are perverted to death. I have a demon fruit power, no matter in terms of physical strength or ability, I can't beat you. Speaking of this topic, Caesar frowned, slightly distressed. My physical skills have reached the bottleneck. Over the years, the growth and strengthening of the soul has led to the strength of the physical body. In addition, he exercised his body day by day. The strength is increasing day by day. The obvious performance is hockey's deft control. Talent and potential continue to grow. Memory has also been developed to a certain extent. But what follows? It is due to reaching a certain degree of saturation that body art has stagnated. Brad scratched his head, thoughtful. No wonder you haven't been as active in physical training these days as before. The two walked back side by side. Caesar sighed. Yeah, because of pure exercise, it's already hard to improve physical skills. I've been thinking for the past few days whether there is a better training method. Since observation hockey has been promoted to a certain level, he can use observation hockey to glimpse his own state. He checks the changes in his body after training every day, and makes a summary every week. Therefore, it is easy to find out that the progress of physical arts has been slow recently. If you continue to train like this, it will just be a waste of effort. It's better to find another way and find a better training method. He rested his hands on the back of his head, looking at the gaps between the leaves, the light and shadow sprinkled, constantly plundering back. So what? The new training method is. Caesar's pervert is different from him, and it may take a long time for him to reach the so-called bottleneck. I figured it out. Caesar, who was still distressed just now, stopped suddenly. Looking at Madara's divergent light and shadow, the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. Since static is not enough, then make static into dynamic. I want to fight against the strong on the island. He said so. Brad immediately opened his mouth wide. Nani? Although his own strength has been enhanced to a certain extent over the years. But his mentality still stays when he was a child. The awe of the strong has never weakened. After training for so long, it's time for actual combat. Building a car behind closed doors will always be a frog in a well. Caesar looked at him in surprise and admiration. My heart began to waver. You're right. There was ambition in Caesar's eyes. Then gently close your eyes. Observation hockey instantly looks like a huge net. Covered the entire island. No wonder observation hockey is also called Shinwang by Enel. His observation hockey is already extremely powerful. He can appreciate the beauty of the ability to capture the dynamics of an entire island with observation hockey. In the network structure in the spiritual sea, bits and pieces appeared. Faint blue dots are ordinary people, and reddish ones are people with some power. Intense deep red. He is an extremely powerful strongman. You are the one. Under the great wisdom. Opposite Caesar, stood an extremely strong man, about 2 meters tall. 2 heads taller than Caesar. The muscles in the arm were bulging like a sledgehammer. The body is as huge as 2 Caesars. Dazi was last on his challenge list. A martial arts master. Brad looked nervously at the confronting 2 people. This Dazi looked too strong. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva worriedly. Caesar looked like I wasn't in a hurry, bent slightly, fisted, Caesar. Then he stood still on the spot, looking at Dazi calmly and indifferently. Dazi didn't think highly of this kid at first. He was still a brat, so he should go back to play in the sand. How dare you learn from others and challenge adults here? If it wasn't because he wanted to look good in front of the students in the martial arts school, he wouldn't have accepted this kind of joking challenge. But looking at Caesar's plain face, a burst of anger suddenly arose in his heart. It seems to be looked down upon. What? He clenched his fist and rushed forward, his huge fist and protruding muscles raised high, just like an iron mace. With frightening strength. Brad closed his eyes for a moment, a little afraid to look. Caesar staggered slightly and avoided his attack. Afterwards, he used a move similar to jujitsu in his self-created body art. HMPH. What strength can a soft fist have? In the next second, he stopped immediately. Caesar's moves were unpredictable, something he had never seen before. Use softness to overcome rigidity. 3 strokes. With ease, sharp fingers were on his throat. He still hasn't realized what's going on. The young students watching the play on both sides suddenly burst into warm applause. Caesar withdrew his hand, clasped his fists and bowed lightly, accepted. His martial arts concept is different from this world, and has its own uniqueness. And the moves are novel, and the opponent can't see his routines clearly. Naturally, it was easy to win, and he turned and walked out, leaving with Brad. Challenged 3 strong players in one day. His physical skills, which were stuck in peace, unexpectedly began to loosen, and there was a faint tendency to improve. Sure enough, he was not mistaken. Actual combat with people can improve physical skills. The next day, he found another strong man as usual. It's in a kendo gym. The samurai held a long sword in his hand. The moment Caesar saw the long sword, he felt a little admiration in his heart, and it seemed cool to play with the sword. But he was still his defeated opponent. Caesar bowed to him confidently and saluted. After a few back and forth trials, Caesar decided to take the initiative. Dash forward, slam on the brakes, spin into the air, and kick down hard. Clang. His foot was actually blocked by the wooden sword. Come again. Side kick. Boom. Was hit by the back of the knife. Hit the wall of the sword dojo. Caesar gritted his teeth and struggled to his feet. Caesar had a tough game, and to the end. Still lost. On the way back, Brad kept supporting him. Don't be too discouraged. That person is a very famous master in the sword dojo. It's normal that you can't beat him, and you are a child. He is already an adult. Caesar clenched his fists. In the pirate world, there will be no distinction between recognition and children, only strong and weak. And he wants to be strong. The next day, Brad found that Caesar was slashing at the stakeman with a long sword. Do you want to learn swordsmanship? Caesar nodded. His learning talent is enough. Learning swordsmanship, for him, is a matter of time allocation. Papa papa. The blade kept hitting, making a sharp and pleasant sound. The 3rd year. Moon Night. Caesar was empty-handed. On the other hand, Brad is in the shape of a saber-toothed tiger. The 2 of you come and go to each other. With a roar, the saber-toothed tiger fiercely opened its mouth wide and bit Caesar. Caesar didn't move and waited for him to bite. The moment the teeth touched the body, it turned into a rich jet black. Ah, Brad let out a pain, and quickly let go of his mouth. It's so hard. Caesar's upper body can completely cover armament hockey. He is armament hockey who awakened at the beginning of this year. And armament hockey is easier to master than other hockey. Combined with its strong body, it quickly covered the upper body with the armed color. After disarming armament hockey, he and Brad sat around and had a barbecue. In the night sky, the stars are twinkling and the breeze is blowing. Caesar closed his eyes. Under the observation hockey, the consciousness had spread outside the island, a distance of 1 kilometer from the coastline. Every time he takes a break, he spreads observation hockey in this way, increasing the range of observation hockey without looking. Hiss. In a bush 500 meters away, there is a lion majesty with a pattern of Madara modeled sticking out his tongue. Caesar glanced at him, and lion majesty fell down immediately. In the past 3 years, his conqueror's hockey has become more proficient in use, and can be activated almost at any time. And has a primary physical influence. The non-stop training and fighting made his ambition grow day by day, and his self-confidence also swelled unprecedentedly. It is a matter of course that courage affects conqueror's hockey, and it becomes stronger and stronger. The forest is an open place. You are Caesar. A middle-aged man with a sword on his waist, leans, slightly raised his chin, interested in the little guy in front of him. After all, Caesar has been challenging the powerhouses on the island for the past few years, and his name has become more and more popular. I also ask the seniors to enlighten me. Caesar smiled humbly, but the confidence and determination in his eyes were very attractive. He pulled out the long sword that had accompanied him for many years. The blade is against the man. Brad watched from the sidelines, looking forward to it. He has witnessed Caesar's heaven-defying growth over the years. In the next second, his eyes flickered. The two figures merged quickly, so fast that only afterimages remained. Clang. The two of you came and went through several tricks. Caesar has been very proficient in swordsmanship over the years, and he has been able to fight with the strongest swordsman on the island. Brad just felt dazzled. Boom boom boom. Caesar swung his sword forward sharply. The air instantly condensed into a slashing airflow. With a sharp edge, he quickly passed by. Although he was dodged by the enemy, his power did not stop. A large area of trees was chopped down one after another. Its formidable power can be seen as a Madara. Rians immediately felt threatened, just about to cheer up. Another flying slash. He hastily dodged. Caesar raised the knife, pulling into the distance between the two of them. Clang clang. The long-distance combat instantly became a close-range combat. The two knives hit each other in time. Sparks flew. The more you hit down. Rians felt more and more that Caesar was not to be underestimated. His strength is too great. Every time it hits, it makes people's arms go numb. Not to mention the frightening flying slash. One blade style spiral wind. Absent. Caesar raised his blade quickly. A spiral hurricane swept away immediately. By the way, the gravel on the ground was rolled up. Rins took a few steps back, but there is no way to escape. Raise the blade to fight. The body was forced to retreat step by step. After a few seconds of negative resistance, what? Was swept away by the spiral wind. Brad's eyes widened immediately, and he gave Caesar a thumbs up. Caesar smiled, slipping the longsword back into its sheath. He is the most powerful person on the island. Caesar, you are really amazing. Caesar snorted softly. The strongest person is me now. A few days after defeating Rins. Caesar seemed to be getting busier. Brad finally catches Caesar once on the road. I've been preparing supplies for going to sea these days. Go. Go to sea? Brad couldn't imagine living in an unfamiliar place. And the sea is full of unimaginable dangers. Okay. Caesar had been thinking since beating Rins, he is already the strongest on the island. If you want to make greater progress and become the top powerhouse, you must go to sea. Brad looked at Caesar, who had a determined gleam in his eyes. Heart agitated. Caesar seems to be the case. No matter when, always be full of confidence. On the other hand, he followed the trend and didn't take the initiative to think about the future for himself. Go to sea with me, Brad. Caesar had long intended to invite him. Brad is his closest companion on this island. He wanted Brad to accompany him on his journey. Brad stared at him for a long time without speaking. He pursed his lips tightly. May I ask why you are going to sea? Naturally, to become stronger. Caesar answered without hesitation. What about after becoming stronger? Caesar looked at him. the light in his eyes was so hot that it was a little dazzling. Being the strongest is the only way to protect what you care about. Like his life. And companions. After Brad was in a daze for a long time, he looked back at Caesar. I'll go to sea with you, he made up his mind. Follow in Brad's footsteps. Watch the day Brad becomes a top powerhouse. After the two decided to go to sea, they went to say goodbye to their partners on the island. Especially Green and the others, although we spent very little time together. But after all, they grew up together. There is also the owner of the tavern where the two often go to spend the night. Although there is reluctance, the Emperor of Heaven ahead is broader. On this day, the weather was fine and sunny. Caesar and Brad are carrying bags. Ready to go to sea. Just at this time, a young man ran over from the pier. He raised his voice and shouted, his voice full of fear. It's not good, the pirates are coming. Caesar paused for a moment, after looking at Brad. Observation hockey immediately swept away. On the shore, a boat was gradually approaching the pier. On a tall brittle pole hung a black pirate flag with a red skull on it. On the sail, there is also a red skull pirate, connected with white letters to form a complete Roman alphabet. The most important is, on the pirate ship, there are the auras of countless strong men. There are several of them. It was something he wasn't even sure of winning. He immediately clenched his fists. His body trembled with uncontrollable excitement. Now you don't need to go to sea, you can meet a strong enemy. Hearing his unusually excited voice, Brad felt helpless, and then frowned. There was a little worry in his eyes. Caesar and Brad went to the shore. The pirate ship just docked. Behind Caesar, a group of young people from the island came clattering. Rins, who fought with him a few days ago, was also among them. Most of the strong men on the island have come. Many people had weapons in their hands. Pirate, don't even think about entering the town. Rains put his hands on the handle of the knife. His eyes were burning. His body was like a thick wall, blocking the island's residents and pirates. Everyone else nodded. That's right, unless we step through our bodies. Caesar stood in front of them, his expression unclear. The hull pushed the water, anchored, and sailed. One after another, guys with extremely powerful breath came down from the deck. Not only the breath is strong, but the body is also extremely tall. In addition to this night, their eyes were also filled with the bloodthirsty breath of the forest. Brad bit his lower lip tightly, his lip trembling constantly. Okay, so strong, Caesar, do we really want to challenge them? He murmured to Caesar in a low voice. Caesar nodded and glanced at him. It's not us, it's me. And he lowered his voice. If we don't stand here, do you think they'll let the island go unraveled? The group of people behind him are all defeated by his men. If he can't, can he count on them? Caesar's eyes burned with ambition and determination. Brad was taken aback for a moment, and only then did he faintly understand. What does Caesar mean by guardian coming? Caesar looked up. The first person to come down was a strange guy with a strange octopus-like beard and hair, giving people a sloppy look. Although the shape is weird and the face is unfamiliar, this person is the most powerful person on the entire ship. Every time you take a step, that oppressive momentum will block your chest like a dark cloud, making you feel stuffy and uncomfortable. Almost suffocating. Too strong. Caesar clenched his fists, eyes sparkling with excitement. The next second, when the line of sight touched a few people behind this strange man, the pupils constricted sharply. Those guys? It was a tall man with a cloth scarf covering his forehead, a long chin, and a Guangdong sword on his back. Isn't it Edward Newgate? Oh, legendary Whitebeard. Also, the person with the golden hair floating in midair is the flying pirate Shaki, nicknamed Golden Lion. Charlotte Linlin was among them, wearing a fashionable veiled hat, with an explosive figure and a charming face. His pupils are shaking. Aunt was so thin when she was young. In addition, there is also the young Kaido who holds a mace and is not lost to Whitebeard in size. These people are all famous characters in One Piece. 4 emperors, 1 emperor from the old era, and the rest are all famous pirates. Could it be? He remembered a pirate group that didn't appear many times in anime. That one lived 38 years ago and was erased by world politics and law. But mentioning it can deter the pirate group of everyone. Rocks pirates. So, he looked at the leader. Is this the legendary pirate trying to become the king of the world, Rocks? No one knew the shock in his heart. A group of people stood side by side in front of him. Oh, this kid is quite handsome. Charlotte Linlin seemed quite interested, and raised her eyebrows to look at Caesar. At the same time, Rox turned on observation hockey. When he felt the power of Caesar, his face put away a joking look. I didn't expect that on this small island. There are also powerful people. Rox took a step forward, with an evil smile on his face, and his eyes flicked up and down Caesar, as if he was looking at some cargo. How is it? Are you coming to my boat? The hoarse voice was full of frightening arrogance. My goal is to become the king of the world, and you guys can do a big job. That's right, it's the vicious Rox pirate group. Facing Rox's invitation, his face remained unchanged, and he didn't know what he was thinking. When slightly drooping his eyes, Rox frowned, his face darkened, as if he was angry that he didn't respond to his invitation with joy at the first time. Rox's body was filled with a powerful aura that could destroy the world. It almost took him out of breath. Brad immediately frowned and covered his head. It hurts. This person is too strong. Conqueror's hockey is much stronger than Caesar. Caesar immediately stood in front of Brad. Give you two choices. Rox spoke slowly, his eyes fixed on Caesar, his face full of imperatives. 1. Come to my ship and become my subordinate. 2. Follow this island and be destroyed together. There is ambition and confidence in his voice. As the voice fell, the momentum invisible to the naked eye suddenly strengthened. The seawater not far from them kept churning. Restless look. Even the coconut trees in the distant forest began to crumble. No. The aura soaring into the sky makes people feel cramped and uncomfortable. The world seemed to change color. The pirates behind the Rox pirates had a look on their faces. Charlotte Linlin stroked her chin with her fingertips, evoking a playful smile. It's a boy around 16 years old, he looks really tender. Watching the show, he said, Captain, let's put it away, what if you accidentally kill someone? The corners of Caesar's mouth twitched slightly, thinking of the image of the ant in the anime, and this hot and explosive beauty. That's completely different, he couldn't look at it at all. I sincerely hope, Linlin, that you don't become an ant. Golden Lion Shiki smiled indifferently, it's better not to cry later, this kind of person won't live long even if he gets on the boat. Ochaku raised his arms, pursed his mouth, and didn't like Caesar's appearance very much. Oh, the captain really doesn't let anyone who is capable. The trainee crew member behind them, Kaido, slung his mace over his shoulder and cast a condescending glance at Caesar. The disdain and dislike in the eyes are very obvious. It's like watching a praying mantis with its arms as a cart. While watching, he muttered in dissatisfaction. What's so strong about this guy, that he can be favored by the captain and invite him? However, the captain is probably going to be disappointed, this kid is a weak chicken. According to him, even the threshold of the Rox pirates cannot be reached. He snorted coldly. Caesar's eyelids drooped slightly, not knowing what he was thinking. Rox didn't wait for his answer for a long time, and frowned impatiently. Immediately, the invisible momentum suddenly strengthened. A palpitating breath approached his eyes. Brad's pupils trembled violently, and he covered his head. It hurts. Everyone behind Caesar's eyes widened suddenly, their black eyeballs were faintly covered, and their white turbidity and red bloodshot eye sockets. Boom. Soon, a person fell down. Then, the second, and the third. One after another people are photographed fainting by Conqueror's hockey. The rest of them were half kneeling on the ground, panting heavily. Their expressions became blurred, and their instincts clamored for them to flee. But the perseverance in their hearts kept them going. Resist the Conqueror's hockey with dogged will. Seeing Caesar's unwavering voice, they gritted their teeth and struggled to stay awake. After Caesar came back to his senses, he glanced to the left and right, as well as the situation of his companions behind him. Immediately, his face turned cold, and his eyes suddenly opened. A shocking aura vibrates the air, like a flying slash, rushing out. The two auras collided in midair, and in an instant, the sky and the earth changed color. The transparent aura suddenly turned into a dark black mixed with red air. With the collision point as the center, it trembled violently and spread outward. The whole island trembled suddenly, like an earthquake. The seawater not far away was also shaking and boiling, as if a tsunami was about to erupt. The clouds in the sky were immediately dispersed. The horror of the breath makes people suspect that this is the Shira field of hell. Flying sand and walking between stones. Those minions of the Rox pirates. Everyone screamed. Wide-eyed. The body rolled several times on the ground. Knocked into the sea. Or hit the hull. Whitebeard and the others also frowned. Blocked this breath. From a distance, the entire island was shrouded in this terrifying aura. Rox snorted coldly, A roar shook the world. Immediately afterwards, Conqueror's haki exploded with greater power. Caesar was not to be outdone. He gritted his teeth tightly, and his eyes were determined without giving in. They must not be allowed to succeed. In the sky above the island, a blue air current exploded. Immediately afterwards, the collision of the airflow made a sizzling sound. As terrifying as thunder and lightning. How is this possible? Golden Lion clenched his teeth, and the veins on his forehead popped out. Struggle vigorously, shifting the center of gravity downward. Trying to stabilize myself, but it didn't work. Both feet, on the shore, dragged out a footprint that gradually lengthened. This kid, how could he be so strong? Charlotte Linlin was also wrinkled and beautiful, her explosive body swaying in the wind. She put her hands in front of her and looked at Caesar in disbelief. This kid is really unexpected. Clang. Whitebeard untied the broadsword from his back and plunged it into the ground. Use this to stabilize your body shape. This overwhelming air current really makes people feel cramped. It is even more unbearable when it collides. This young man. No wonder the rocks are asking him to come aboard. With such a powerful conqueror's haki, ambition and determination, almost as big as rocks. The initial ignorance and indifference in his eyes were gone, and most of them were shocked. At this time, Kaido just set himself in place. But obviously, his strength is not as strong as the others. It has been pushed away by the airflow for a certain distance. His brows were so tightly frowned that he could almost pinch a fly to death. The disdain and arrogance in his eyes have long since been shattered. This guy. He gritted his teeth unwillingly. This kid obviously looks so thin. Why does he have such great strength? Rocks felt extremely surprised. On this small island, there actually exists such a strong man. As soon as the Rocks pirates were established, they swept thousands of troops and no one could stop them. Originally thought that the kid in front of him could barely resist him for a few seconds. Didn't expect it to last this long. After the astonishment, great excitement followed. Subdue this kid, then the strength of his pirate group will increase again. Since he became the king of the world, it has become faster and faster. Ha 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 ha. Rocks burst into a burst of excited laughter that had never been seen before. And Whitebeard, after the initial surprise, slowly raised the corners of his mouth. There was a strong fighting intent in his eyes. He wants to fight this young man. Charlotte Linlin stood herself in the strong air current. Then he laughed. Interesting, really interesting. You look so handsome, yet you are so powerful. I can't wait to play him. Golden Lion took a step forward and snorted coldly, it should be me first. Excitement flashed in his eyes, and his blood boiled as he watched the two confronting each other with red and black air currents. It's not bad to be able to confront the captain for so long. Kaido steadied himself and shook the mace in his hand. He is indeed a strong man, and he can confront the captain for more than 10 minutes. After the shock in his heart, there was a huge excitement in his heart, and he felt that the blood in his whole body was burning. I really want to go up and fight with him right away, it's Hardy. The two's conqueror's haki once again erupted into a fierce confrontation. Rocks pursed his lips, smiled contentedly, and strengthened Haki's suppression again. The discoloration of the world became more serious, as if it had fallen into the end of the world. The airflow turned into real lightning, spreading in the air with a crackling sound. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and black and red thunder and lightning reflected the earth. There is a sense of oppression like black clouds overwhelming the city. The person behind Caesar, who persisted until now, instantly rolled his eyes and passed out. Without exception. The moment the air currents collided, the air was torn apart. The air is like glass, with blue cracks spreading. Click click click. The whole island was shaken. The cyan blue light soared into the sky, mixed with the black-red thunder and lightning, which was extremely terrifying. In the sea not far away, the overlords roared one by one, and then cold sweat dripped down their foreheads. U-turn and run. Slow, has turned white on the sponge. Crack. Shore on the east side. The coconut tree slowly breaks. Uprooted by strong air currents and blown into the sea. Caesar began to pant slowly, then sharply. His chest heaved continuously. That powerful airflow itself is a 50-50 collision. Now it is gradually approaching Caesar. That means his strength began to decrease. Caesar felt a headache and even a whimper in his chest. His conqueror's haki has been used in ultimate. At the critical point, severe pain erupted everywhere in the body. His face was suddenly pale, and his forehead was dripping with sweat. He took 2 steps back impatiently, but he still managed to hold on. Rox looked at the opposite person who refused to give up no matter what, and laughed again. Not bad. I want you to come on my boat more and more. He waved his hand. Then Conqueror's Haki Shun retracted in an instant. Caesar, who had been struggling to support himself, heaved a sigh of relief. Then he leaned on his knees, breathing heavily. I, Rox, appreciate you more and more. How about you, consider becoming my subordinate? After panting for a long time, Caesar straightened up, with great excitement in his eyes. Finally. I met a real strong man. The reason why he wants to go to sea is not to meet a powerful opponent. Then improve your own strength. Now that a powerful enemy is in front of him, how can he back down? Caesar slowly curled his lips. Let's have a real fight. I'm curious whether it's you or me. Although Conqueror's Haki was suppressed by him, it may not be possible in actual combat. Rox caught sight of the swollen ambition burning in his eyes, instantly. They are one type of people. Rox smiled with interest, his white teeth showing. Captain, let me fight him. Rox hasn't answered yet. Kaido stood up, his eyes full of excitement. Lifting his chin slightly, he looked at Caesar and said, beat us first, then you are qualified to fight the captain. Caesar frowned slightly. Rox thought for a while, then nodded and said, all right, you should defeat my subordinates first. Rox glanced back at the huge Kaido and said. Whitebeard and the others looked at Kaido enviously. Although Kaido is still a trainee crew member, his strength should not be underestimated. Kaido immediately stepped forward excitedly. My hands were itchy watching the duel just now. Thank you, Captain, for giving me this opportunity. Caesar knows the strength of the 4 Emperors Kaido, and although he is still young, he is certainly not weak. I still don't know what level of strength my current self belongs to in the sea. Fight against Kaido. He has to think carefully. Kaido stepped forward, swinging his black mace. Everyone else gave in for him. Kaido's every step is heavy, and the huge body makes people feel a little scared. The pirates of the Rocks Pirates, who had climbed back to the back of the cadres, all stared at Kaido's back with excitement. Although they are at odds internally, they often fight each other, quarrel and curse. But in the face of powerful forces, human instinct is to follow. Kaido, kill him. Some pirates started shouting to cheer Kaido up. Caesar turned a deaf ear to the excited reactions of the pirates, watching Kaido approaching slowly with vigilance, his body motionless. Hey, lousy, go down. Before he finished speaking, he raised his mace high. The mace suddenly turned red and black in the air. It was armament Haki. Caesar raised his eyebrows slightly, and the moment the mace fell, armament Haki appeared on his upper body. Bang. The mace slammed down hard. Caesar used his armed arm, and the strength of his muscles reached its peak. The collision of armed color and armament Haki, the sound is very crisp. In an instant, a powerful airflow erupted at the collision point. The two are simply a competition of armament Haki and strength. The move is very simple, but it makes people watch heartily. Okay. That's amazing. The pirates who watched the play widened their eyes, looking at the two of them, with admiration and fear in their eyes. After one blow, the two quickly intertwined. Kaido brandishes his own black mace. Caesar fuses his taijutsu with armament Haki, while using observation Haki to discern his next move. The two fought back and forth for a while. With a bang, sparks flew everywhere, and the two suddenly opened a long distance. Caesar breathed calmly, his face relaxed. On the other hand, Kaido seemed to be breathing heavily because of anger, and his face was gloomy. Caesar narrowed his eyes slightly, and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. He knew that Kaido's strength was indeed not weak. But it is definitely not as amazing as when he appeared as the captain of the Beast's pirates and one of the 4 emperors of New World in the later period of One Piece. And he didn't have the strong physique and amazing resilience after eating yuyu fruit. Kaido felt dazzled when he saw the smile on Caesar's face. Although he was apprehensive in his heart, there was a disdainful cut on his face. Let the horse come here, he roared. Caesar sneered, exactly. The bodies of the two suddenly rushed forward like arrows leaving the string. Caesar drew out the long sword at his waist, and with a clang, it collided with Kaido's mace. Clang clang. The figures of the two quickly left only afterimages, and only a few cadres, including Rox, could see clearly. Between the sparks flying, Kaido gradually lost the wind. Caesar's physical and sword skills are combined, and the changes in moves are extremely fast. And Caesar relies more on the strength of the physical body and the power of the mace. Boom. Clang. Kaido's mace was picked up in the air by the tip of his knife, and after a few rounds of rotation, it was inserted hard into the sand. The sound of fighting subsided, only the sound of the two people's violent breathing remained. Kaido clutched his trembling wrist and frowned tightly. Damn it, you're so strong, bastard. After quickly defeating Kaido, Caesar suddenly looked at Rocks. I challenge you. The ambition that exploded in his eyes was captivating. He wanted to know the distance between himself and a top player like Rocks. The extremely arrogant Rocks burst out laughing suddenly, a cunning flashed across his eyes. Okay, but. He paused for a second, raised the corners of his mouth inexplicably, and an imperceptible calculation flashed across his eyes. If you lose, you will become my subordinate. However, you can also choose to be slaughtered with the village. He revisited the two options he had initially raised. Caesar pouted. I don't want to die so early, so be it. If I lose, I will become your subordinate. Very good. Rocks was very satisfied with his understanding, and without hesitation drew out the big knife at his waist and attacked him. In an instant, purple-black lightning wrapped around the broadsword. When the pitch-black sword was swung, purple-black steam evaporated. Caesar's pupils constricted violently. Before he had time to react, Caesar was directly knocked into the air in the next second. One move. The black lightning was released directly, and Rocks immediately inserted his broadsword back into the scabbard, and the whole process did not exceed 3 seconds. Caesar was bleeding from the corner of his mouth, clutching his hands and struggling to get up alone. Rocks has mastered the advanced conqueror's winding, no wonder. It turns out that the gap between him and the top experts is still so far away. Her tightly pursed lips were a little pale. Charlotte Linlin kept putting dessert in her mouth, squinting her eyes while eating and said, there's one more person on board. Caesar barely stood up, but felt a great pain in Zai's chest, and the black sword directly opened a hole in his armor-colored hardened upper body chest. Caesar endured the pain. I lost. Next morning. Caesar, chest to stomach, wrapped in a white bandage, walked on the road to the town on the island. The town has returned to its former hustle and bustle, and it is no longer as trembling as yesterday, as if it were facing a big enemy. Because they all know that Caesar guards the inhabitants of their island. Caesar, you are going to see, this is for you. When passing by a fruit stand, Granny Gurney came over with a small burlap bag and handed it to him. Caesar met her passionate and sincere expression, paused for a second. This is. After seeing him take it, the smile on Granny Gurney's face became even wider, and the wrinkles around the eyes almost bloomed into flowers. We all know that the group of pirates let this island go because you agreed to board their ship. Granny Gurney, thank you. As she spoke, her eye sockets were a little red. Me too, Caesar, thank you. This, my dry food, is enough. My house has fresh water, I'll bring you a bucket later. The residents on the island are very friendly and hospitable. It didn't take long before his whole body was covered with things, and he was carrying things on both hands and 10 fingers. Even with a bag of stuff in its mouth. Eh? Caesar. When Brad saw his appearance, he ran over immediately, his eyes widened. Aren't you injured? Why don't you take a good rest and run out? He picked up some heavy objects. Just a little injury. The two walked side by side to the shore. The Rocks pirates were replenishing fresh water and food, and boxes of goods were being loaded onto the ship. Kaido glanced at him, rather reconciled, and didn't come to talk to him. Seeing the tall and powerful Kaido, Brad gritted his teeth and his eyes were alert. Caesar kept his eyes on and passed by Kaido, which made Kaido even more angry. After Caesar put away the food given by the townspeople, he went out on the deck, and saw Whitebeard sitting on the deck leaning against the railing and blowing the wind. New here, name is. When he was young, Whitebeard was quite handsome and friendly, with a tolerant and gentle smile on his lips. Whitebeard offered to say hello, and Brad's tense expression relaxed a bit. Caesar stepped forward, tilted his head and smiled. He was still curious about Whitebeard, especially Whitebeard when he was young. Caesar. And you? Can't call him Whitebeard, he doesn't have a beard yet. Edward Newgate. While the two were talking, there was a rustling sound behind them. Caesar looked back, and the chewing sound suddenly became more pronounced. Hey, if you continue to eat, you will finish the newly supplemented food. Kaido looked very grumpily at Charlotte Linlin, who was eating cake and dessert. When Linlin was chewing, his eyes seemed to be impatient, and when he saw Kaido stop him, his face turned black. Caesar raised his eyebrows. This is hunger runaway Ling. Sure enough, the next second, the ant who was prevented from eating started to run away and directly fought with Kaido. Whitebeard sighed, and introduced him helplessly. The one holding the mace is the intern Kaido, and the one who eats and drinks is Charlotte Linlin. One thing to warn you, that is, don't stop Charlotte and Linlin from eating, otherwise, bad things will happen. Whitebeard kindly told them about the ship. Brad looked at the shaking Kaido and Big Mom, and hugged himself tightly. Lousy as Shiki, known as the Golden Lion. A yellow-haired person floated in the air, it was Golden Lion Shiki. Caesar nodded at him. Shiki looked at Caesar like a monster. What's going on? You're not even curious about Lousy's abilities. The Golden Lion seemed dissatisfied with Caesar's cold reaction. At this time, John and Ochaku approached, and they were also very interested in this powerful newcomer. During the period of replenishing food, Caesar got to know the cadres on board one by one. Soon Rox returned with a small party of pirates, all with their shoulders over the kegs. I've got some wine to drink, let's have a banquet tonight. Someone happily suggested. Haha, I want to defeat that bearded man and give him wine with his head. The crew members on the ship chattered and discussed, the topic was extremely bloody. Caesar had expected it from the very beginning, and it had no effect on him, while Brad was very trembling, feeling a lot of dislike for this pirate group in his heart. The boat traveled some distance and was safe in the sea. In the evening, there was a bonfire party. Hey, Caesar, Lousy wants to fight you again. Kaido was very dissatisfied with the result of yesterday's defeat, and at the same time wanted to continue to become stronger, so he focused on Caesar. The onlookers suddenly burst into loud shouts. The eyes of this group of people are full of bloodthirsty and madness, like a group of desperados. No, they are desperados themselves. Linlin, who was full of food and drink, smiled cutely and gently, with heart shapes on his mouth opening and closing. Why does this tall Kaido like newcomers? So bad. The Golden Lion Whitebeard at the side glanced at Charlotte Linlin, as if to say, you don't give up too much. How about it, don't you dare. Kaido spoke harsh words at him. No, there is nothing to dare. Caesar leapt forward and jumped out. The upper body quickly turned on the armed color hardening, with a little red hardening layer in the pitch black, as if wearing a thick layer of armor, quite invulnerable. If it wasn't for being scratched by the Rox yesterday. Rox laughed wildly while drinking, and did not comment on the battle between the two, and was even happy to see the result. Bring it on. Instantly. Boom. The wind howled. The two touched their fingertips, and sparks flew everywhere. The collision of armed colors hardened in the scorching air brought the banquet to a climax. The sound of clang and clang is endless. Everyone watched intently. The figures of the two were extremely fast, constantly colliding in the air. Brad was a little puzzled. Why didn't Caesar use his long sword? Instead, it was an unarmed fight? In the fierce battle, Caesar felt quite at a disadvantage. Bang. The two were bounced away and separated by a distance. Kaido gained the upper hand, but didn't look happy. You don't use a sword? What do you mean by being so bare-handed? He is holding a mace, but the opponent doesn't use any weapons. Does this mean he looks down on him? Caesar shook his head. No, I just want to practice armament hockey. His weapon has not been hardened yet, so for now, he has to exercise the strength of his upper body hardening. It is best to develop full-body armed color hardening. This is also the purpose of his promise to Kaido's challenge. Armament hockey is the latest to awaken among his conqueror's hockey, and is naturally the weakest, requiring constant exercise. Combat with Kaido is the best way to exercise. Poor Kaido. He didn't know that he had become a partner in Caesar's heart. After a period of time, both Caesar and Brad have begun to adjust to life on board. Even when Caesar is eating, someone will always appear. Come on, let's compete. Kaido often asks him to fight, and Caesar often agrees to his invitation based on the idea of training armament hockey. However, it does not include running out to disturb him while he is eating. Caesar's face turned cold, his brows frowned slightly. At least you pick a suitable time. Are you an asshole like that woman in Linlin? With a swipe, Caesar jumped in front of Kaido. Then let you lie down for a few more days. After finishing speaking, he clenched his fist and threw it at him fiercely. Armed with hardened fists, it seems stronger than before, and he has figured out Kaido's moves. This time, the combat power was fully used, and Kaido's nose was bruised and his face was swollen. After the end, Caesar was finally able to eat in peace. But Caesar is not a quiet master. After defeating Kaido, start looking for Charlotte Linlin. Let's play a game. Charlotte Linlin's mouth was parted like a witch's, and her eyes radiated an evil light. Caesar confirmed the guess in his mind. At this time, the ant should have a daily evil personality, and when she is hungry, she will turn into a hungry and irritable Ling. Only occasionally, gentle and kind Ling will appear. It's a pity, he really likes the gentle and kind Ling. Then come on, I also want to see how strong you are. The battle between the two is more exciting than the battle with Caesar and Kaido. Caesar and Kaido are more of a confrontation of physical strength. And the ant held a big knife and swung it flexibly. In addition to physical confrontation, there were also various flying slashes. Those who watched were dazzled. The battle with Charlotte Linlin ended in Caesar's defeat. After 2 days of nursing the wound, he approached Whitebeard. Whitebeard's strength should be the strongest person on the Rocks ship besides Rocks. After thinking for a second, he agreed to Caesar's appointment. Whitebeard, in his youth, was also a militant. Whitebeard's naginata, with a clang, broke his sword. Caesar can only use physical skills to fight against him, and the armed color is hardened, and the use of Conqueror's Haki and Observation Haki are matched with each other. What? With a roar, Whitebeard's huge body leapt forward, and the armed hardened naginata struck down from top to bottom with a ruthless blow. Caesar clenched his teeth, resisting with black arms. During the collision, the Conqueror's Haki confrontation between the two exploded with a powerful force. Boom. The blue air current exploded a transparent mushroom cloud in the midair of the ship. Brad hid behind the pillar, watching this scene in disbelief, and only realized at this moment how strong Caesar is. I fainted early that day and didn't see the battle between Caesar and Cross and Kaido, but this time I feasted my eyes. Won't that dismantle the ship? He scratched his head, a little worried. Boom. Another burst of airflow soared into the sky. The hull shook violently, and the members on board were cursing. Hey, do you want to change another ship? This boat is still new, hello. Caesar clearly felt the power gap between himself and Whitebeard, but he was neither depressed nor discouraged. He pulled out a long knife belonging to a member of the ship and fought Whitebeard again. A gentle breeze blows on the calm sea. Caesar spread his hands and stood on the deck enjoying this rare moment of leisure. It seems to be back to the day of sunbathing on the beach as a child. During this time, I often challenge Big Mom, Whitebeard, Kaido, Golden Lion and others. His combat skills have been greatly improved. In addition, the use of Conqueror's Haki has also been improved. Sure enough, you still have to fight the real strong. There is an unknown situation ahead, full left rudder, turn around. When he was enjoying the sunbath with his eyes closed, suddenly an urgent voice interrupted his joy. He opened his eyes and saw that Observation Haki clearly felt that there was a thick dark cloud cluster in the sky 500 meters ahead, and it was very low. Zilla zilla. Thunder and lightning flashed through the dark clouds, piercing the darkness. Rumble. There was a sudden thunder, and the dark cloud instantly spit out dense yellow lightning like rain. The hull turned rapidly, he grabbed the side of the boat to stabilize his body, and was greatly shocked. It's too strange there is only one place with dark clouds, and there is such a dense thunder and lightning. After avoiding the dark cloud, the weather was calm for a while. He breathed a sigh of relief, and then sat side by side with Brad on the side of the boat to fish. Brad wiped off his sweat and complained, "You're so boring. You're thinking about fishing in such a sunny day?" The voice just fell. Slap. Clatter clatter. The figure of the heavy object falling on the deck attracted the two of them to turn their heads. Both of them were stunned, their eyes widened unconsciously, and their mouths opened wide. In the sky, hailstones began to fall. From the slowness at the beginning to the rapidity later, it was even dense like raindrops in a torrential rain. Caesar quickly pulled Brad and hid in the cabin. From the transparent glass window of the cabin, looking at the hailstones falling like stones outside, there was a curious light in his eyes. Whitebeard glanced at Caesar and Brad, who looked like children, raised his voice, and laughed loudly. For a moment, Whitebeard's exaggerated laughter filled the cabin. Most people in One Piece have recognizable laughter, and Whitebeard is one of them. I didn't expect Whitebeard to have such an exaggerated laugh when he was young. He blushed for a second, but still laughed at him. "You are going to sea for the first time." Whitebeard looked at Caesar like this, feeling a little nostalgic. It was the same when he went to sea for the first time. When it was snowing, he lay on the glass window and watched for a long time. Whitebeard shook his head, smiled heartily again, and explained to him, "The weather in the second half of the Grand Line is so unpredictable, just wait until you get used to it." It's not just the weather that amazes Caesar and Brad. There are also various strange-shaped islands and various creatures in the sea. Fortunately, Caesar did not eat the devil fruit, and often went to the sea with everyone to catch fish. Or stand on the side of the boat and let people startle the fish out with one punch. When eating grilled fish at night, Charlotte Linlin actually reached out and handed him a piece of grilled fish. Caesar's expression suddenly froze, and his pupils trembled violently. "Aunt, give him something to eat. Although it is a small fish the size of a palm, the key is who it is given to. It's Aunt. Aunt's nature of protecting food, she is willing to give food to others? Unless it is gentle and kind Ling." But he glanced at the bloodthirsty evil in the aunt's eyes, and immediately shook his head. "This is obviously the evil Ling, okay?" Looking at Caesar's vigilant eyes, the aunt raised her eyebrows slightly. "Huh?" His face began to look a little ferocious, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "Do not want?" Caesar paused for a second before taking it. "Caesar, are you coming to my team?" The aunt directly invited her, and Caesar sighed helplessly, knowing that the aunt couldn't play any evil tricks. Her evil is completely exposed. "Your team?" he asked strangely. "Is it the fan team?" The aunt nodded. "My team has a lot to eat, and I also have many capable subordinates." While speaking, Golden Lion leaned forward and snorted coldly at Big Mom. "My team is the best." When looking at Caesar, there was a faint intention of wooing. Caesar didn't understand how he became the hot pot for everyone to fight for, and he looked confused. Whitebeard on the side looked gently at Caesar, who was much younger than him, and patiently explained the situation on the ship. "The Rocks pirate group you saw, headed by Rocks, has 6 divisions under its banner. Not only between individuals, but also between teams. You are very powerful, so they will choose to invite you." Caesar nodded knowingly. "Thank you. There's a pirate ship ahead." The pirate who was watching from the observation deck with binoculars shouted down. The voice was full of excitement and excitement. Caesar was puzzled for a moment, remembering that the reaction of the protagonist in the comics after seeing the pirate ship was completely different from the reaction of the people on this ship after seeing the pirate. "Ha ha ha ha, brothers, are you ready to have a big fight?" With a big knife pinned to his waist, Rox stood on the deck and looked ahead, with greed and excitement in his eyes. "It is good." There was a lot of response. The pirates on the ship were all bloody. Not far from him, Charlotte Linlin licked her lips, her eyes glowed green, like a hungry wolf crouching in the grass, salivating for its prey. Kaido swung the black mace over his shoulder, and the excitement of eagerness to try was faintly visible on his face. Although Whitebeard was still smiling, there was a fighting look in his eyes. "Let's have a big fight." After Caesar looked around, he realized that he was a little excited, and it was the first time he met other pirate ships. Fight other pirates and scramble for treasure. This seems to be the daily life of pirates. In the past few days, he was either training or fighting against others, and he completely forgot about such a thing. "So, can we replenish supplies now?" Brad was terrified but also a little excited. "Pirate ship, it's a pirate ship." Caesar gave him a helpless look. The child was frightened and stupid. "Isn't the one you're staying on now also a pirate ship?" Out of curiosity, he turned on the observation hockey and explored the ship ahead. "Strong." "No, there are only 1 or 2 moderately strong players, but they are also very average. Maybe Ochaku can beat him easily if he works hard. I'm a little disappointed." He sighed in disappointment, and was about to take back the observation hockey, when the next second, his eyes suddenly widened. On the observation deck of the opposite ship, there were also people patrolling around with binoculars. "Captain, there seems to be a pirate group ahead." The voice was also full of excitement, and the person who was called the captain showed a smug smile. "See what pirate group it is." He is very confident in his own strength, as long as it is not the vicious pirate in the legend. He can fight. The pirate holding the binoculars was originally excited, but trembled all over in an instant, as if he had seen something terrible, and fell to his knees. He swallowed hard. "Boat, Captain, it's, what are you talking about? What kind of pirates?" The captain growled impatiently. "It's the Rocks pirates." "Nah. Nani?" The captain immediately froze, his pupils trembled violently, fear began to spread, and the desire to survive suddenly broke out at this moment. "Escape. Run away." As if facing the end of the world, he panically commanded the crew to operate. Caesar looked in amazement. The captain changed his face very quickly. "No, that's not the point. The point is..." He looked up at the pirate flag of the Rocks pirates, quite shocked in his heart. The red skull is swaying in the wind, deterring every pirate ship on the sea. The Rocks pirates are really powerful, it's almost frightening. "Chasing. Captain?" someone asked. Rox paused for a second, put away his fighting spirit, shook his head and said, "Forget it, there is nothing valuable on that ship." Then he walked back to the cabin. Seeing this, the others cursed immediately. Cut. I ran away again, I thought I could have a big fight. Isn't it the famous Jack pirates recently? Why are you so timid? In the following time, they also encountered other pirate groups. But the people in the watchtower above didn't even bother to report. After all, they weren't the same famous pirate as last time. Even famous pirates fled in panic after seeing Rock's pirate ship, not to mention other small pirate groups. It's okay not to be scared to death. Both Brad and Caesar couldn't help but lament the popularity of the Rock's pirate group, which is equivalent to the existence of the Overlord at sea. The two walked back to the cabin side by side, but were attracted by a lively sound. Open big, big, big. A group of people gathered around the table, and a man in the middle was shaking the dice cup violently. After putting it down with a snap, everyone shouted their guesses. Little. The roaring sound was endless, it was noisy, but also felt very lively. Caesar walked over. When the dice cup was lifted, there were 3 red dots. Yeah. Win. Charlotte shouted excitedly at Linlin, grabbing her winnings. Seeing the huge pile of gold, silver, jewelry and various weapons, Caesar's eyes moved slightly. The next inning, Caesar also took out some Baileys. Put it in the position where the word big is written. His eyes were fixed on the investment cup. I said silently in my heart, big. Charlotte and Linlin's tiny eyes widened, little. Not to be outdone, Kaido said, big. The dice cup stopped and was turned upside down on the table. In the darkness, the moment Caesar misunderstood, in the darkness, the dice turned over slightly. Won. Kaido's exclamation sounded, and Caesar also took a large sum of money. An unknown island in New World. When the Rock's pirate ship is about to dock, looking around, the town is bustling with many buildings. Look down. The people on the coast looked in their direction, their eyes were terrified, and they backed away screaming. The big thing is bad, the pirates are here. In an instant, Hele Anning was shattered, replaced by panic and restlessness. Caesar frowned slightly, pursed his lips tightly, and said nothing. The ship docked, and the Rock's pirates held machetes and swarmed over the side of the ship. Soon, the island that used to live and work in peace and contentment ignited the flames of war. What? The screams pierced people's eardrums, the sound of panicked footsteps intertwined with the evil laughter of the pirates. Treasure. Those pirates all showed greed, burning, killing and looting the town. The ant narrowed her eyes, her big nose was raised high, Dao Xin opened and closed her mouth, and waved the machete in her hand. Tell me, where is the dessert? Kaido also released it to his heart's content here, and the Black Wolf Master smashed a building with one blow. Caesar leaned against the ship's side, his eyes deep. This is the nature of most pirates, burning, killing, looting, and doing all kinds of evil. Especially the Rock's pirates. Although he became a member of the Rock's pirates, he has his own bottom line, and there are some things that he disdains. He will not bully ordinary people, let alone burn, kill and rob at will. His enemies are Marines, or pirates, who are stronger than him. Suddenly, his pupils shifted to the right and saw Whitebeard. He was stunned for a second, and then raised one eyebrow slightly. White. Newgate. Why didn't you go down? Whitebeard was still sitting on the railing, resting his chin in one hand, looking at the crazy pirates, with a bit of resentment in his eyes. Snatching treasure is not my dream. Murder is not. Recalling Whitebeard's style in the anime, Caesar nodded, I see. His flat gaze and expression made Whitebeard slightly stunned. Aren't you surprised? Every time they were dividing up the treasure, his reaction was flat, and those pirates would be very strange. Where is there any pirate who doesn't love treasure? Are you really a pirate? Words like that filled my ears. But he doesn't care, he knows what he wants in his heart. But the young man in front of you seemed to understand, his eyes moved slightly, and he gently pulled out a smile. Caesar found a place to lie down and let the sun pour down. It's nothing surprising. I'm just like you. I don't like treasures, and I don't like wanton killing. I go to sea to become stronger. He didn't say the second half of the sentence, and my ambition. But killing ordinary people doesn't make me stronger. Only by challenging the strong can we continuously improve our abilities. Whitebeard froze slightly, his smile turning into a laugh. He looked at Caesar with admiration in his eyes, and after a while, he said, just like you challenged rocks? Caesar nodded. There were only the two of them left on the boat, and they chatted naturally. A while ago, was Charlotte Linlin trying to win you over? Caesar looked at him, as if asking, how do you know? You have to be careful. Once you join a certain team, it is very likely that your team leader will become your captain. Caesar was stunned for a second. Huh? How do you say that? Whitebeard explained. People on the rocks pirates fight with each other, especially among the squads, and each captain wants to replace the other, or replace Rocks, and become the new captain. But Rocks is too strong, so far no one on the boat can beat him. And besides the Rocks, no one is sure to overwhelm anyone else. Caesar nodded in a daze. That is to say, the Rocks pirates were not on the same page, or they were thinking of splitting up and forming their own faction. Either think about replacing Rocks and become the new captain. Whitebeard's words gave him a better understanding of the current Rocks pirates. The captains of the various teams on the ship are ambitious in themselves. Not to mention, the ones who own Conqueror's hockey, namely Whitebeard, Golden Lion, Big Mom and Kaido. Including himself, they are all unwilling to be inferior to others. The name Valley of the Gods came to mind, where the legend says Garp and Roger teamed up to defeat the Rocks. So, he frowned, thinking deeply. After the Valley of the Gods, the Rocks pirate group fell apart, and the powerful characters on the ship went out to work alone, and later became the only big pirate in a certain area. Especially Whitebeard and Kaido, have achieved even better results. Looking at Whitebeard's figure, he thought, Whitebeard will definitely start his career as a father in the future, accepting one son after another. The ant will also become a veritable ant, and she will have a litter all her life. Now the ant seems to have several sons, but the oldest is only 10 years old, and was placed by the ant on a certain island. Kaido ate the most suitable fruit for him, his ability greatly increased, and he had the background to become one of the 4 emperors. What about him? Caesar closed his eyes, thinking about the way ahead. Night. The moon hangs high. Calm has returned to the island. After a while, the commotion rose again. It just changed from the miserable screams of the residents to the carnival of the pirates. A lot of treasure, we sent it. Rock's men, those vicious little pirates, carried boxes of things found on the island to the ship. Looking around, corpses were strewn all over the field, and blood flowed all over the ground. Caesar walked slowly in the middle, watching them carnival over property, fighting each other because of uneven division and bleeding. If he hadn't followed him on the boat that day, perhaps, the Rocks hadn't given him that choice. His hometown will become like this. The burning flames of war became the foil for the lively dinner of the pirates. Pirates have always been happy to hold all kinds of banquets. Newcomers join, crew members die, treasures are successfully robbed, and so on, all of which can be used to celebrate the purpose of holding a banquet. Tonight was no exception. The original tavern in the town was occupied, and the lively roar was deafening. There was a lot of drinking at the banquet, but there was no singing and dancing. Most of them are facing each other with swords and swords. Some people punched while eating, some people blushed after drinking, and then started fighting when they disagreed. Someone set up a bet on the duel, and within a short while, there was another round of fighting with swords and guns. Some people sat in the corner and concentrated on eating and drinking. The table in front of Charlotte Linlin was full of various cakes, desserts, and chocolate delicacies. In short, as long as it is sweet, it will be gathered in front of her. The mouth is wide open, one bite of dessert, smash it, eat it with relish. Kaido, who has 2 horns on his head, is drinking heavily, a little drunk. The star-studded Captain Rocks, his cheeks were flushed from drinking, and the excitement in his eyes was undisguised. Another island, cheers, little ones. He raised a huge wine glass, which was mixed with red wine and white wine, and while shaking, a little wine spilled out. Oh! Everyone raised their glasses and cheered happily. They gathered for the sake of making a big deal, and plundering more treasures was their ambition. Several cadres paid no attention to it, and their reaction was flat. Rocks didn't take these people seriously either, so naturally he wouldn't pay much attention to them. Little ones, the next step is the real test. The drunken eyes seem to be a little clearer. Do you know celestial dragons? Everyone below paused, and the atmosphere froze for a moment. Even Whitebeard and others looked to Rocks. My God, celestial dragons? Some pirates wondered why Rocks suddenly mentioned celestial dragons. Shish. Someone nervously motioned. The person next to him immediately covered his mouth. Shut up, do you want to die? Rocks' eyes suddenly turned cold, and his brows and eyes were as if a layer of frost had condensed. He looked at the two of them and snorted coldly. The two of them shuddered suddenly, and the cold sweat slowly flowed from their backs. There's nothing to be afraid of, isn't it? The celestial dragons? Rock's eyes burn with ambition and fearlessness. Laozi's dream is to kill celestial dragons, and the world government behind him. Then, seize the top power in the world. One day, Laozi will replace them and become the king of the world. Rock stood up and poured another jug of wine into his mouth, with an arrogant tone and ambition in his eyes. After destroying the hateful celestial dragons, rebuilding Dee's kingdom is Laozi's dream. The pirates of the Rock's pirates all stared wide-eyed, their pupils trembling. Nani? The shocking sound of Chi Lang Lang resounded through the tavern. But soon, their mood changed. The captain is worthy of being the captain. Caesar looked up and saw a person leaning on the ground. Wearing armor all over her body, with a long sword beside her, the beard on her chin is long and slender, and her eyes are full of worship. What are celestial dragons? There is nothing to be afraid of, our captain is invincible. Caesar knew that this person was Ochaku, a character who only appeared by name in the anime. However, it is not unreasonable to become the dominant pirate after leaving the rocks. The confidence in his eyes is very hot. Captain Ochaku is right. F*K Celestial Dragons, F*K World Government. This group of pirates are vicious people who are fearless, and the inflated ambition in their hearts quickly covered up their fear of the world's noble celestial dragons and their power. There was a lot of response. The pirates drank enthusiastically, shouting their ambitions to destroy the celestial dragons and overthrow the rule of the world government. It's like a golden hero who rises from the rebellion. Too bad. They're not heroes. Caesar glanced at the laughing rocks, lowering his eyes slightly to hide the sarcasm in his eyes. He also hates celestial dragons, the nobles of the world, who are high above them. But destroying the celestial dragons is difficult. The most difficult level is world government and marine. And both belong to the 5 elders who stand at the apex of the celestial dragons. It is impossible to overthrow the celestial dragons and the world government without overthrowing these existences. And, the rocks were doomed. When he was in the Valley of the Gods, the combination of Garp and Roger would completely send him to hell. The next day after the banquet, the members of the Rock's pirates, who were drunk, got up and continued sailing. Ever since Rock spoke of his ambitious goals at the banquet, the spirits on board have grown. Caesar watched from the sidelines, and could feel their restless emotions and growing ambitions most. All because of that evil careerist, Rocks. The Rock's pirates are quite chaotic, there will be fights every day, and life and death are almost the same. Caesar also followed the trend and gradually increased the number of challenges. Anyway, it is helpful to improve his own strength, so why not do it? In addition, his relationship with Whitebeard has become closer, and he often asks Whitebeard what happened to him when he was sailing in the past. Newgate, can I ask you how you train your gymnastics? Recently, he often asked Whitebeard about various abilities or training, and Whitebeard explained to him very patiently most of the time. Your physical skills are already very good, do you still need to ask me for advice? Caesar quickly waved his hands, no, compared to you, the difference is still too far. Whitebeard was a man who could shatter the sea and the sky with one punch. Although he has the bonus of shock fruit, but without a strong physique, he may not be able to use the fruit's ability to such an ultimate. Constantly push your limits, Marine 6 styles is such an existence. Caesar was thoughtful, and silently remembered, what about Conqueror's Hockey? His control over Conqueror's Hockey has reached a certain level, and he is eager to learn Conqueror's Hockey. Well, how to explain? The two whispered for a long time, but at present, Whitebeard is outputting, and Caesar is inputting crazily. After consulting Whitebeard, he went back and cooperated with the training. With his outstanding talent, he digested it in a short time. After some time, the ship docked on the coast of a deserted island. He took the initiative to find the Golden Lion. Ask me for sword skills. Golden Lion was biting a cigar in his mouth, and while the smoke was lingering, he squinted at him, you have great ambitions too. He said something inexplicably, but he didn't know who he was referring to. Each other. Well, do you want to compete? He certainly wouldn't expect the Golden Lion to be as nice as Whitebeard. Although he is a very loyal person, he only does this to people he likes. Then come on. With a bang, Golden Lion propped his right hand on the ground, and a gust of air immediately sent him midair. The blade of the long sword in the book was pointed at him, and his long golden hair fluttered in the wind. Members of the Rock's pirates ran out to watch. Golden Lion and Caesar are both cadre-level powerhouses on their ship. This is a fight between gods. Rox also hooked his lips slightly, grinning an evil smile like a witch's sickle. This kid is quite courageous. Whitebeard also watched with his chin in curiosity. Caesar also drew his new longsword and held it against his chest. Slash wave. Golden Lion shot extremely sharply and raised the sword in his hand. The slash and boom exploded, slashed at him violently. Boom. The ground that the slash passed by was instantly shattered, forming a large rift valley. Caesar does not dodge or dodge, the front is hard steel, and armament hockey instantly turns the long sword into black. With a clang, the great power contained in slash wave collided with his long sword. Caesar gritted his teeth and was pushed back some distance. His mind kept turning over what Whitebeard had told him about the conqueror's hockey entwining. What? Caesar yelled and waved his arms. Bang bang bang. The slash was disintegrated by him in an instant, bounced to the other side, and hit the woods beside him. The trees fell one after another, and the slash finally disappeared. Golden Lion raised his right eyebrow. He seemed to have felt a trace of Conqueror's hockey just now, entangled on the long knife. I don't know if it's an illusion. There is no doubt that the Conqueror's hockey is wrapped around Golden Lion's own long knife, which is why his slashing is so powerful. If one hit fails, move on to the next one. The sound of clang and clang echoed non-stop, sparks splashed when the swords collided, and the incomparably domineering air currents also collided with each other. The way of heaven changes color. Caesar looked at the black and purple hockey wrapped around the Golden Lion's sword, thinking. He used all his sword skills, fierce, fast, sharp and so on. But no matter how it changes, it will be easily resolved by Golden Lion in the end. With a pop, a stream of blood spurted out from his left shoulder. Golden Lion swooped down from the sky. What? Before Caesar could react, he was hit hard and fell towards the sea. But his falling figure slowed down strangely in midair, and then he turned over and fell to the shore in pain. He lost, completely lost. Sure enough, whether you have mastered Conqueror's winding or not, attack power is two concepts. Report. There is a pirate ship ahead. Another sunny sailing day. Caesar looked up and easily sensed the people on the opposite boat. However, this group of people did not show excessive fear, but kept moving towards their ship. Caesar, who had just recovered from his injury, showed a little interest. It's rare to have a pirate group that doesn't run away after seeing the Rock's pirate group. Who could it be? When observation hockey continued to explore, he saw a man with a green beard and an iron hat with curved horns on his head. The left horn of the hat was broken, and there was still a thin and short man sitting on his left shoulder. The man also wore an iron hat, and the earlobe wore the same gold earrings as the tall man. Caesar was taken aback. These two faces were somewhat familiar. World, that pirate flag, the Rock's pirates can't be wrong. The thin man held a telescope in his hand, turned his head, and said seriously to the tall man. World. A white light flashed in Caesar's mind, and the corresponding information appeared in his mind. Isn't this the Momo fruit-capable user, Burndy World? The most vicious pirate defined by the world government as the destroyer of the world? A lunatic who wants to destroy everything he sees. A man who has only appeared in the anime theatrical version. In the manga, Burndy World is a legendary pirate who lived 30 years ago. Because he attacked the pirates and marine, he was finally wiped out by the pirates and marine. So that skinny man is his big brother Biojack? Biojack was a little worried. Do you want to avoid it? Cough cough. This Rock's pirate group is notoriously vicious in New World. They are the real overlords of the sea. We have only entered New World not long ago. World laughed a few times, with a hearty smile, looking at the indifference and evil before returning for revenge. The first battle in the New World, how can I escape? We have to remove all the obstacles that stand in front of us. The young World's eyes are full of longing for freedom. Of course he also has ambition and self-confidence, and there is a hint of arrogance in his hearty smile. The companion standing beside him. The blue-haired Chinese medicine boxer, Nakin. Sebastian, a fish titan mixed with murlocs. Wearing a pot-pot skirt, cubic fruit ability user, Gyrom. After hearing what the captain said, Nakin immediately raised her red lips. That's right, just kill them, there is nothing to be afraid of. Gyrom also responded, 10 minutes should be enough. Sebastian snorted softly, and took a step forward. We were able to defeat even the most powerful enemies in the past, and now we have entered the New World, and we cannot back down. Wald's ability gave them great confidence. Hearing what the cadres said, the pirates on Wald's ship suddenly became excited and responded. The people on the rocks pirates were equally excited and excited. It's rare for a pirate group not to run away immediately, and this ship is huge, so there should be a lot of treasure. This pirate flag, I remember seeing it in the news before, it looks familiar. In the telescope with pirates, I saw a pirate flag with a green beard and an iron hat with horns, and he hesitated to speak. Caesar said softly, "It's the walled pirates. The world government calls them the destroyers of the world. It's the easiest way to see the world government's fear of them. Be careful." Unexpectedly, as soon as Caesar's words fell, they were not only not afraid, but on the contrary, they became excited. The bloodthirsty factor was about to move in the bodies of these pirates, and Caesar even heard the sound of tongue licking, thinking that he couldn't wait to taste the taste of blood. Rox glanced sideways at Caesar, then snorted coldly with disdain, "What walled? Haven't heard of it. And the destroyer of worlds? It's lousy who wants to destroy the world." The two sides hadn't formally fought each other yet, and the hatred for each other seemed to be full. Caesar was in a daze for a second, and then took a step forward. "Captain, the captain of the opponent, Berndy Wald, let me handle it." Evoked a militant smile that looked very similar to the Rocks pirates, but somewhat different. "After going to sea, I haven't met a hero from the sea yet?" Brad on the side immediately looked at him worriedly, and whispered softly, "Caesar." Then Caesar didn't hear it, he understood why he volunteered. When he plundered the village last time, he didn't make a move. This time the pirates fought, he not only wanted to continue to improve his actual combat experience, but also to earn some merit. "Only in this way can I be more clear about my position in the Rocks pirates. After all." His eyes were burning with fighting intent, and Waldbahn's pirate flag was reflected in his pupils. He remembered that Berndy Wald's strength was very strong. Physically, Moonwalk and Shaved with Marine 6 styles are shown. In terms of ability, Momo Fruit can double the size, speed, and weight of all objects he touches. And his hockey is also very skillful, except that he has not awakened Conqueror's hockey. The use of other two-color hockey by Berndy World in the prime of life is proficient. No matter how you look at it, he is a difficult person. "Then I'll trouble you, Caesar. I'm looking forward to this spoil from you." Caesar walked slowly towards the bow of the pirate ship's deck, hands raised, waiting for their ship to dock. When the two ships approached, Wald stood at the bow, throwing a few small ammunition in his hand. Caesar immediately frowned. "Don't look at the small cannonball, but under the effect of Wald's ability, it can double its size and speed. At 100x speed, a few shells are enough to blow up a ship, or within tens of seconds. It's too late, but it's fast. Double speed, 50 times bullet." Wald throws it hard. 5 small black cannonballs were fired at them. The 5 shells suddenly swelled to the size of bombs in the air, and their speed also increased in a straight line. The friction with the air made a long, sharp sound. Everyone on the boat frowned immediately. Kaido still turned his eyes away in disdain after a brief surprise. "Cut, demon fruit power." Just about to start, he waved the mace in his hand. In the next second, there was a clang. Caesar drew his long sword around his waist, jumped into the air, and struck hard. Armament Hockey's hardened black sword unleashed a crescent slash in the air. Collided with the extremely fast shells, immediately. Bang 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 bang. Shells exploded in the air. The aftermath of the explosion hit the pirate ship, drifting non-stop. Caesar fell back to the ground, and squinted at Kaido. "That guy is my opponent." Kaido paused for a second, then snorted coldly. Rox clapped his hands excitedly and laughed. "Not bad. Walled pirates on board. Whoa la 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 la." Wald opened his mouth to laugh, and the green beard on his chin moved slightly with the movement of his mouth. As expected of the pirates of New World, quite powerful. But the arrogance in his eyes was fully revealed. "Everyone and everything in front of Lousy will be destroyed. Captain, you don't need to do it yourself, I'll go meet that kid." Sebastian stepped forward and volunteered. Wald thought for a second, shook his head and said, "No, I'll deal with that guy." Observation Hockey could sense the opponent's strength. Knowing that this person was not something his subordinates could easily handle, he curled his lips slightly, and the next second. Boom. 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 Wald jumped up, stepped on the air, and jumped into the air. Wald jumped onto Rock's pirate ship, swept across, killed all the little guys around him, and immediately picked up the 2 guns on the ground. Caesar narrowed his eyes lightly, the sword in his hand pointed forward again, and the crescent moons slashed one after another. World dodges easily. Caesar was not discouraged, and quickly ran in to fight with him. Double speed, 10 times the gun. 2 black muzzles were pointed at him. Click. Boom. Caesar's speed was extremely fast. The moment the bullet was shot, the gun was cut off by him, and the bullet in the air was also exploded by him in an instant, and the conqueror's hockey exploded. In the billowing black smoke, where hockey passed by, a long crack appeared. Wald was taken aback for a moment, and his expression immediately became serious. Conqueror's hockey has a trick, but you're still too young. With a roar, Wald flashed in front of him extremely fast, his black fist raised high. Caesar clenched his teeth, blocked it with the knife in his hand, and was forced to take a few steps back. Too strong. Grandmaster Hockey, Marine 6 styles, Devil Fruit ability is also very dreadful. He felt a little strained. But at the same time, the fighting spirit in my heart became more and more high, and it was hard to meet such an all-round opponent. It's really a pity not to learn a few tricks. Ah. Caesar let out an angry roar, the muscles in his hands violently twitched, and he swung the long knife in his hand fiercely, and the two of them immediately distanced themselves. The next second, he flashed behind Wald. Whitebeard, watching from the sidelines, raised an eyebrow slightly. This Caesar really should not be underestimated. In just a few minutes of the battle, he learned Wald's moves. Kaido also opened his eyes slightly in surprise. Having fought against Caesar many times, he knew very well that Caesar had never used this high-speed movement move before. Although the speed is not as fast as the proficient world, but he has experienced difficult physical training, and it is not very difficult to use this move. This kid, his learning ability is too heaven-defying. Rox laughed while watching. Sure enough, he made the right choice when he invited people on board. Clang. The long sword slashed fiercely towards Wald's back, hit him right in the back. But nothing happened. This level of attack is like scratching an itch for world. The black-armed hockey seems indestructible. Caesar fell into a stalemate for a while. He was afraid of his fruit ability in long-distance combat, but he couldn't fight against his hockey in close-range combat.